Hi, business communication students. Dr. Seibert here, talking about your chapters for last week and this week. So, starting at the very beginning, good thing to do, right? We're just talking about really communication in the business world. What do we do in our jobs if we have jobs? Like for my job, of course, I use email most of the time. Sometimes I don't do that a lot, but I do also do that. And of course, our other things like, we have probably a cell phone, we have a work phone maybe. And when I'm doing student conversations, we have to stick to Blackboard because I think in communication, it's really important to have, let's say, just a backup or a copy of what was talked about. On a conversation on the phone, I can't remember, I can remember the person, but I won't remember every detail probably. But if it's in a written form, I can go back and say, oh, okay, yes, I did that. No, I've got to do that. So I've already got it laid out in an email, basically. So that's kind of what we're talking about, how we're going to go through business communication in this century. So I would say, I'm just going to look in here, our professional communication, that's really key, being a professional. So as we are doing professional communication, we are going to, in this course, be professionally speaking to one another. Now, that doesn't mean like we're going to be rigid, blah, blah, blah. What it means is we're going to use correct words, correct spellings, and we don't use abbreviations like JK for just kidding. We don't do that because I'm telling you, there will be a ton of people in business that do not know what these things are. Probably won't for a long time. So it's just best to stick to common words that we would hear every day. And that's kind of an interesting thing too. We don't want to use something that's like a word like, what does that mean? We want to use something that people can understand. We can always use a fancy term or something like that. But when you get down to communicating, we just want to know what the message is. We don't want to have to go look up something to see what this word is before we get the message. So being plain, getting to the point, and making your points in a logical way, very important in your business communications. And you're going to see a lot of times in business anymore, we have collaborations, which is kind of nice. Get people together, talk about whatever the subject is, and then write up maybe some things, and something is presented then as one idea, one thought. So these are good things to have because, I can only think of so many things and somebody else will think of something. I'm like, that is a really good idea because everybody thinks from a different, point of view. So we're going to see in your business communication more collaboration as you go along as well. So if you're that person that's like, really, I hate groups, that's me too. That was me too, but it's the way of the world. So just know that and just do it. Just do it. No, it really is the way of the world. So just however you can get yourself comfortable with it, go ahead and try to start doing that because it is the way of the world. So, in business communications is a lot of etiquette too. When I email people, I like to say, good morning, hello, thank you, appreciate this, niceties. So maybe they'll help me again because they thought I was a pleasant person, which I try to be, but, just little nice things. Or, use their name. Good morning, Jan. And so that's nice too. Like, oh, that's nice. I got somebody to tell me good morning already. So, just little things like that will make the person that's reading it maybe even more attentive because you use their name. Because I know if my name is used, I'm like, what? Okay, yeah, okay, here we go. So just kinds of things like that just really makes it a little more personal, but still an etiquette thing. So as we're doing our business communications, we do want to do them in a way that looks good. We want to use paragraphs. We want to use punctuation. When we do paragraphs, we don't want to have one long paragraph. And then like there's 10 ideas. So I'm like, okay, boom, here's one idea. I'm reading, boom, here's one idea. You know, usually you can't process a whole long paragraph. So try to break out your paragraph so they mean something. If you're talking about one thing and you're done, period, go to the next thing. Break it up. Breaking it up is a great idea. So just remember these things as you are writing, in our business communication class. And so things have changed a lot as far as our communications. I'm talking about emails, but now we do a lot of Skype, Zoom. So there's business communications with those kinds of platforms as well. You've probably seen a lot of funny things, like I like to watch TikTok, and you see the person that's dressed, I have a t-shirt on, but then they have just shorts on, that kind of thing. And everybody thinks that's funny if they get up. But don't do that, be that person, okay? If you are on Zoom meeting calls, if you are on Skype, make yourself presentable as you would as a professional business person, which means when I go onto a meeting, I always make sure my hair is brushed. I do brush my teeth. I do put makeup on. I do try to look good for the camera as far as my clothes, that kind of thing. I'm not going to, if I'm cold in the house, I wouldn't put like a parka on and sit there at the meeting like that. I don't normally put backgrounds unless they ask for one. So I just use a normal background, or if you can use just a plain background, just something that does not distract from your speaking or the messages when people are talking. So when we're starting our messages, of course, we're just going to have a draft. Most likely, we're not going to come on the camera and go da 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 da. I have a draft right here of things. Now I talk a lot, so I start ad-libbing. But most of the time, you're going to have a little bit of an agenda. So this agenda is when you are doing your business communication, you want to write out a plan, what you're going to talk about. What are you going to talk about? It would be silly if I was talking to you about economics, and we're not talking about that, so stay with what you're going to talk about. And that would be, we're talking about communications. Most times we're going to plan it out some way. If I'm doing an email, I write it down. I go ahead and write my email down, but I go over it over and over and over again to make sure it sounds right, professional, and I have it's broken out so it's easily readable. And so there are so many executives that they'll scan until they hit that one thing. So that's why breaking it out is a good idea. So then as I've, planning, of course, I make different changes to what I'm going to write. And maybe I'll research something. A lot of time in business communication, you'll want to research something. A lot of you maybe had not done Zoom before. Haven't used it a lot. I'm in a lot of Zoom meetings, so I know a little bit, but those are things you will want to learn as we go along. And, at some point, if you're that person that goes, I know all about Zoom, yay, because so many companies don't. So planning, how are we going to talk about this message? Are we going to have a Zoom meeting? Probably now, or a good email. I wouldn't suggest an IM. It's just not enough there, unless it's something that's maybe I'll call it a mini emergency. I'm needed up at the front desk because whatever. So I wouldn't be using an IM system. And of course, now we use our phones a lot. And once again, I caution on using phones, your own personal phone, because that you really don't want a lot of people probably having the number. You don't want to get into a lot of text messaging. That's your personal phone. You'd rather keep messages on the side of the work. So that's just a, kind of a caution. Yes, I have some of my fellow employees on text, but that is not how I normally talk to them. I talk to them through emails. I talk to them in person or through Zoom. So maybe, somebody will, like I had a meeting a couple of weeks ago and the code was wrong. And so we were just texting between a couple of people to see what the code was. Wasn't anything like anything other than the importance things that we could do absolutely right then. So anyway, then you'll end up completing what your message is. If you have a really long one, have somebody look at it. I look at lots of people's messages at work. I have a doctorate, so I've written a lot. So it's not, and I would have somebody look at mine too, because it's okay. People catch different things. And that's why we're all different and have a different way of looking at things. So, somebody else might have a suggestion of how to write something and break it out, or maybe something else that should maybe be talked about. That's okay. So have a completion plan, one that you feel comfortable with before you would put it out to anybody. So as I said, I'm that person that reread, da, 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 da. And, it's good for me. Some people can get it on the fly. That's, if that's how you do it, good for you. So anyway, that's kind of our first 4 chapters. Knowing that business communication is changing. As you can see now, I'm on Zoom. So how do we want to look on Zoom if we're going to be on Zoom meetings? How are we going to talk? Before I talk in a Zoom meeting, I pretty much write something down so I'm not just off the top of my head. So that's how I do Zoom meetings. I don't necessarily want to talk a lot, just if something comes up, I'll write something down as we're going along. And if I'm planning messages, I certainly try to have a draft, redo it to the way I think it should go, and then I will send it. You're in meetings, you want to be particularly careful how you do your drafts. You make sure everybody looks at it, says it's okay before you send it everywhere. So, and like I said, caution on using your cell phones. I would just try to stick to anything, if you're in a business, anything that would be business related, sticking with business communications. Yes, sometimes we use our cell phones, but it's best to I like to have a log of everything I've done. If somebody says blah, 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 and I can go back to my year ago email, that's going to be way better than if I try to find something on my cell phone. I have a million people that's been writing me. At least I can, find something pretty fast through email. So that's our scoop then for this, I say the first 2 weeks. Fast course, 8 weeks. So it's a pretty fast pace. But I hope, you will get some of I like to give you some of my, how I've gone through and how I've done things. And I think it's really important, if you really are needing help with something, it's always good to ask somebody. It's okay to have somebody else read something, or just even if you shoot off an email, you're like, maybe I better have somebody look at it. It's okay. Better to be careful than have to deal with something later. Okay. So all I'm going to end with this week is my Go Chiefs shirt, AFC champs. And anyway, have a fantastic week. Please email me if you have any questions. I look at my email all the time. So anyway, thank you.